Well, Brent, thanks so much for being on the show today. I want to start this conversation. Maybe if you can explain what Integrus is and what you do, and then we can kind of get into behind the scenes, people development, that sort of thing. So to set us up for where we're going, can you first explain what Integrus is?
Yes, Dylan, thanks for having me. Excited to do that. Integrus, we are a coaching organization, professional development, with the specific emphasis for Christ followers. It's the easiest way I can say it. We serve primarily churches, pastors, and their staffs, as well as nonprofits. We do also serve some Christian businesses, and not Christian in their business, but Christian business leaders who want their coaching to have a bit of a Christian worldview. So we don't thump the Bible in our coaching. We do believe we follow the best leader that ever lived, and we learn from the life of Jesus. That being said, it's definitely informed all of our lives, which comes into our coaching. And we are specifically focused on that Christ follower who wants to be better at whatever they're doing. So we talk a lot about how do we play to your strengths? How do we overcome constraints, right? Something that hinders you from a desired outcome. How do we overcome that? And we live a lot in behavioral leadership. So our coaching is really focused in three key areas, which all of our work would fall within. But number one is helping a leader to lead themselves. So Dylan, we've done a little bit of work together, but working with an individual leader, looking at some of their desired outcomes, helping them achieve those desired outcomes through simple, practical behavioral change. The next way would be helping them lead a team of people. So doing team engagements, virtual or in person, and then helping them lead their organization. Maybe they need help with board development or strategic planning, mission, vision, and values. We could have conversations. Right? So everything that we do would fall into one of those three categories. And
So,
we do come at it from a data-driven process, which I'm sure we'll get into.
right. So this is actually really interesting to me. Integrus, and we'll kind of explain what this is, why I wanted to have this conversation. It's not like a typical personality test. You probably wouldn't call it that at all. What I didn't know, so just like background here, Brent, you and I met. X29 is a church play network that New City is a part of that I lead, and so we get to help with assessments a couple of years for the last couple of years. Integrus has been a part of that assessment process. So Integrus has come in and done the profiles on the pastors that we're assessing, and I just thought this tool was like really helpful, really good. I didn't know it was specifically for like Christ followers, because the way you guys explained it, I mean, obviously in a church planning assessment, we're talking about faith, but I just assumed it was like anybody could use this. What makes it like specifically for faith, people of faith?
I would say the tool can be used for any. The tool is the tool would not use the word discriminate, but it could
Right.
be helpful for any person. And there's no biblical reference with the tool. Our perspective is though for is more for the Christ follower. And that does not mean only coach Christ followers, but most, if not all, the work. I'm trying to think if there's any exceptions. Most of that work does fall into that realm of wanting to be better. And if I guess there would be some nonprofits that don't have any Christian component, but they're a nonprofit, and so they've also fallen into our. So the tool would not necessarily be solely for someone who's a Christian, but our perspective and our coaching would definitely be informed by our own personal.
Oh, that makes sense. So I want to talk about how Integris works, so that this kind of informed the rest of our conversation. Maybe it's hard to. I mean, you do this all the time, so you could probably explain. I'm thinking it might be hard to explain this without the visuals and that sort of thing. But can you explain like what Integris is and how it works, how it's different than a personality test, and like what it encapsulates?
Yeah, are you talking about specifically the Integrus 360, the tool?
Yeah, the thing that I'm most familiar with, I guess.
Yeah. So we have a proprietary tool. It's called the Integrus 360, and it's a behavioral measurement tool. It's a very simple 360 assessment that we would call a behavioral assessment. So you're right. We would steer away from personality. The reason for that is not that personality assessments are not helpful, but we believe that behaviors are not always easy to change, but more easily changed than personality. And that's what we're looking for is that practical behavioral adjustment that's going to make you a more healthy and effective. And so that's what our assessment, it's a simple assessment, it takes about 10 or 15 minutes, where you self-describe using adjectives and then you send it to 6 to 8 what we call describers, people who know you well in a working context or life context, and they describe you with the exact same list of adjectives. So it allows for, it's not open-ended questions. It's you can't read into it of like, where are they leading me? It's just adjectives, and those adjectives are putting weight in certain behavioral buckets and moving things around, and then we get this comprehensive report that's presenting 13 behavioral scales, and it shows you where you see yourself, where your describers each see you, but you do not know who your describers are on the report. You just know who you asked to do it. We give them a reference range, which is simply helping them identify where might I be at risk or in danger of this being a constraint. And then it just starts to inform us as Integrus coaches to go, here's some things that we see in similar leaders with behavioral data like this. Now, having the same behavioral data, this is a little bit of a differentiator from us in the personality assessment. The likelihood of someone having the exact Integrus 360 profile that I have is like 1 in.
Yeah.
Basic personality assessments are really pulled out of kind of there are 4 personality types, and you fit into the Enneagram, moves up to like 9, but all of that is kind of based in that science. We come at from a slightly different perspective and think that we can be a great complement to something like an Enneagram of this, something that's going to speak more to your personality, which bucket or which type you are. We're going to look at your leadership in general and go, what's hindering you and what do you need to be doing more of or less of? There's also an awareness piece to it.
Yeah.
Am I way off from where my describers see me? We can have a conversation.
Yeah. Well, that helpful too. Yeah. It's not about necessarily personalities, it's about behaviors. And I think that the 360 report, at least in my experience, is so helpful because it's like, let me evaluate myself. Let me see what other people are saying. Where's the disconnect? And what does it look like to kind of move to health in those areas? I'm curious, how did you end up at Integrus? How long has Integrus been around and how did you end up there?
Yes, Integrus is 18 years old. It's been a great organization for a long time, and it was really resourced about six or 7 years ago to expand. So our president, Lyle Wells, has been a part of it since the beginning, and it was a real bit of his. Wherever he moved, whatever work he did, we wanted it to advance the gospel. So our core mission statement is to advance the gospel, like equipping and encouraging leaders for greater impact. So 18 years old, that's a little bit of our history. My history with Integrus is I was a partner, which is what some people call a client, but I live in the same town that Lyle lives in. We both like college basketball. He's a former college basketball coach. And so we found each other. We found that we sat next to each other at Aggie basketball. I live in Bryan College Station, Texas A&M. I went to Texas A&M. And we just had mutual friends, and we just ended up sitting next to each other at a lot of basketball games. And I started asking more and more about what he does. And at the time, I was working at Breakaway Ministries. Breakaway is a Bible study that meets on the campus at Texas A&M. Large Bible study, and I've been there for quite some time. And one of my responsibilities at that time, while I was at Breakaway, was to help lead the staff alongside our executive director. Development was one of the conversations that we were having. And I would say we were doing really, really great ministry. We were seeing thousands of college students on a public university come into sports arenas, fill it up, worship, and learn about the Bible. I mean, that's what we did. And still there were team dynamics where we could get better. A lot of young people working with the staff at Breakaway Ministries. And so I finally was just like, hey, well, I think what you do would benefit our team at Breakaway, and would you come in and do it? And so he was like, yes, absolutely. In March of 2018, to work with our team, 6 or 7 of us on the staff at that time. Did the profile for the first time myself, and I'll just be honest, I was so helped by it. I felt like I moved more in 6 months or 3 months after taking my profile and being coached by Lyle than I had in the last 3 years. And that doesn't mean I wasn't actively working, meeting with leaders, but I just had a practical, actual plan built for me. And I just started to live it out with our staff. And some things that were felt on our staff that we couldn't articulate we had words to articulate it because it was in the data. It's like, well, here's why we sometimes get frustrated as staff with ministry and type base together. Here's why we don't always think about problems or solving in the same way, because we're built different. We have different behaviors that we'll bring to this team. And so what could have been or was potentially a frustration on our breakaway team, it became an appreciation. Man, I love the diversity. I love the diversity of pace or diversity of where our energy comes at things. And it just taught us about each other. And so after that, I was like, wow, I want to know more. So that summer, I became profile certified. And he taught me the profile. He taught me the ins and outs of it. And then, separate from anything with Integrus, I just felt I'd been at Breakaway for 12 years at that point, on staff for a little less than that, but in part of the ministry. It's in my early 30s, and I felt the Lord saying, there might be something else I have for you. I just felt a loosening of my grip around my Breakaway role. Transitioned out of Breakaway, and then after being unemployed for a couple of weeks, which I've been married for 5 years at that point, but my father-in-laws don't love when you're unemployed. Yeah. That was a driver for us. I came back and I made a list of men that I would like to work for. Like, I wasn't asking for a job, but I made a list of, hey, here's men that I can't think of something more honoring than if someone came to me and said, Brent, I'm not asking for a job, but one day I'd like to work with and for you. So I made that list. Lyle's name was one of the top guys on it. We got back from a trip, my wife and I, for our university. And the next morning, my phone rang. And I showed it to Ashley, my wife, and she goes, it's live. And she goes, did you already text him? Because I had said, I'm going to follow up with these guys when we get back and figure out what's next for us. And I was like, I haven't talked to Lyle in a couple of weeks. And he was calling to say there was an opportunity. I wanted to know if I was interested. Had to play cool. Like, yeah, let's have a conversation. Let's see what you got in mind. And that was November of 2018. And so I've been on the team now for 6 years. And I've loved it. I tell people Breakaway gave me a very focused view of my work and ministry. I was head down, focused on Tuesday nights at Reed Arena, outfield, working with our staff. Integrus has this beautiful thing of like lifting your eyes to see what is happening all across the world, and then getting to support leaders in different areas and different industries. So it has been very eye-opening to me to just go, man, this is fun. And this is really, really good. So that's a little bit, I don't know if I answered your question, but that's a little bit of how I got involved.
That's so wise. I've never heard of that. Making a list of people you'd like to work from or learn from and then talking to them. What did you think that maybe one of them might offer you a job, or what were you expecting when you started that process?
I thought maybe they'd be like, well, I have a need. But again, I was coming at it from the perspective of wanting someone to speak into my life. What are some skills that you see that I could be good at? You do different. They were all different industries. Some of them were commercial real estate, some in construction. Lyle was in coaching, consulting, professional development, leading his own company. Some of them were in insurance of all things, and some of them were in ministry. I was going to call some pastors and look at that as well. And so, yes, I do think I was like, maybe this will open a door. I wanted to take some initiative, but I also wanted them to speak in it. What do you think I get? What do you think I could add value to in an organization or at a company that may be different than what I've done in the last 12 years since I graduated? I really wanted to try something different. Yeah. That was another telling thing is there were things I was good at Breakaway, but I didn't know how to articulate things. And so I tried it somewhere else and was like, oh, I love solving problems. I did it very naturally every day. I would use those words until I switched positions and then saw what stuff, what maintained from one job to the next. Yeah. So I know I'm looking for a position next time. I want to solve problems. Things and really hard things or things that people get stuck in and help them get unstuck. So
that's fascinating. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Integrus, you've probably coached, reviewed with hundreds of people at this point. I mean, gone over their profiles, had conversations. What is one of the craziest interactions you've had with someone while reviewing the report? My guess is if they're having a report done, they're at least somewhat open to feedback. although maybe if their boss is saying we're doing with the whole team, maybe not so much. But like, have you ever had like a crazy, angry like a time?
I, I've uh, I've learned in my 6 years that data is accurate. I mean, I tell people all the time, if I find a better tool than what we currently have, then I have to think hard and fast. But I just haven't found it. Our tool is extremely descriptive, and I've never seen it miss to well, I think what you're asking. But you do get those people that you see their profile. You're like, one of the scales we measure is aggression, which is the pushback or reaction. And I don't know that it's been I don't know that I would call it like the craziest thing, but I do love when someone who may be a little lower nurture, a little higher aggression, just constantly pushes back on it. I'm a nurturer, man. Like, I love people. Like, I don't get angry, and I'm like, yeah. And sometimes you don't also hear what's coming out of your mouth at the volume intensity that it is. Perfect. Let's have a conversation around that. So people are very respectful when you're trying to help them. One of our ideas is that getting feedback is good. And getting feedback is a difficult thing, especially when I'm giving you feedback. Like, that's never received well. But when you can insert a third metric or a tool, I like to think of it as, I'm now not sitting across from you, Dylan, giving you feedback on your leadership. I'm actually sitting next to you, and the tool is giving you feedback. Like, I'm not the bad guy anymore, the tool.
Yeah.
And I'm going, do you want your nurture score to be right here? Because we can talk about if the tool's accurate or not, but your people are not picking adjectives that would feel very encouraging or caring. Do you want to have a conversation? If not, okay. But the other thing that we teach at Integrus is, number one, everyone has constraints, and no organization will rise above the constraints of their leaders. And then we teach that a leader who is unwilling to grow probably is unfit to lead. And the last thing you could say is, if you don't have your constraints, they're going to be. So if you have to make it a bit intense, and I want to be cautious here, but if you have a drinking problem, that probably doesn't affect you, but it probably affects your employer, your wife, and your kids. And so I don't want to overstate it, but I would say that to someone I was coaching that was really closed off to growth. And so once we really start to articulate the tool, oftentimes I find that most of their misunderstanding is just that they don't understand exactly what we're measuring. And when we start to say, hey, it's more of this than this, they start to go, oh, yeah, that's probably not right. So that's, I always like when the metric, when the behaviors on the call are what the profile says, and they're just not quite understanding. That is one of my favorite things. But there's a lot I learned from leaders. We think the mind and leaders and people think in word pictures or pictures, so we use a lot of them. So someone who's, in that example, a little higher aggression, a little more nurture, I wouldn't just tell them that about themselves, but I would try to get them a word picture. So I may say, hey, when you walk through your office, people see you as the sheriff. Right? You got a gun on your hip, a badge on, and you're Brent Monogue, right? You're stopping people from doing. I said, hey, I'm not telling you to stop being the sheriff. Maybe your team really needs to do that. But for 15 minutes, once a week, twice a week, put it on your calendar and just call it your mayor. The mayor and sheriff fill different, very different roles inside the organization. You'd be amazed at what just being a little more intentional to be a mayor once a week or twice a week, where you take the gun off, you take the badge off, and just walk around the office and kiss babies and ask about how they're doing with their family. And it's amazing how comfortable people will get talking about things they're passionate about. We just need to be good question askers as leaders. And I've really been challenging some leaders. Like, you've worked with teams for years, and people for years. The fun kind of can come out of it if you stop wanting to learn about your team. So go learn something new about your people that you didn't know because you asked a good question. And if you'll do that, nurturing will go up, aggression can come down. And that's just one example of the many that our profile could.
I'm curious. I wonder if it's more just based on the person, but is there like a type or a group that you like to assess and give feedback to the most? Like, I know you guys do maybe pastors or like CEOs or like maybe as an administrator. Is there like a type of person or a group that you're like, hey, I like to do these people the most, or does it just depend on the person?
It really depends on the person. I want someone that's got some enthusiasm, some passion for their work or for development. Um, think about, I like someone who's got a firm handshake, and we do a lot of coaching on the Zoom. So if you have a firm Zoom handshake, I really like that. Um, it's a little bit more of like a limp fish. You're like, okay, I'm going to have to work a little harder here
Right.
to bring this in. But I will say that I really enjoy the leader who comes after looking at the report and like, "Brent, I don't want this as far as for me to 6 months." Right. And that's the beautiful thing about our profile is that it's not a report card. That's a little different from a personality assessment. Our scales are changing there with coaching. And so I do enjoy that. I like leaders that can take it direct, although they don't always, they're maybe a little more difficult to implement with because they're like, I don't know if that's really true. The ones I have the biggest part for are the ones that are really hard on themselves. We do measure negative self-talk. And that gets to a certain point. My coaching voice gets changed. I don't know what my coaching voice is. It's maybe like a direct big brother is maybe the how I come at it. But then I see someone who's really hard on themselves, or really struggling with anxiety, or their general well-being is not in a healthy place. I would say, like a doctor, we want to do more. So we want to come in gently and and maybe just hopefully encourage them to stop believing some of the lies that they're believing about themselves. So I would say that I adjust according to the behaviors, not in a just genuine way, but if someone's going to really take this hard, then and I don't like for Integrus to be the hatchet. Like I don't.
Right.
If you're going to fire your people, don't profile them beforehand because I don't want to be the hatchet people. We want to help people grow.
Yeah.
And see longevity. So sometimes people get nervous taking the profile. They're like, well, what does this result in? And I'm like, it's okay. We're not going to use words like that. We're going to use what tries to use.
Yeah. That's good. Now in order to get an accurate report, the participants have to know the person they're giving the adjectives to some degree, in order for it to be good. What are ways that you have found that people can live in such a way that we can be better known to people around us, if that makes sense?
That's a good question. I mean, one of the things that helps is proximity. I mean, you really, uh, are you spending adequate time just in conversations and in relationship with people? Uh, we work remotely. I work from home. We serve organizations all over the country. We have team members in every time zone in America. And very few of them live in Bryan College Station. And so to that point, you have to figure it all out. And the people that describe me, so I take a profile about every 18 months just to hear from my team some feedback. How is it working with me over the past year? And my team that works remotely will describe me better than almost anyone else in my world. Because we prioritize that as a team. We want to connect with people there. The profile you will describe someone how you experience. So it will tell me if someone doesn't know you well. They'll use their adjectives. There's some scales that tell us how much affiliation, how much energy you get on building community or being people. If that's also lower, I will tell a leader, hey, some of your describers do not feel connected to you relationally or even in a work setting. And doing that intentionally, or maybe you need to develop more. And then I would just say this: just be honest with people. Like be your authentic self, and expect that they will accept that and appreciate that, and just be honest. But if you fine, speak it. If you think about something multiple times and it's just never coming out of you, then you're not giving your team their best. And if you work for a team that does not embrace or give you the opportunity to then you change the hours.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, I know you don't like to use the words good and bad, so that makes sense. But have you ever, maybe health and unhealth, maybe there's a different word. Have you ever seen someone get a really unhealthy report and then like completely take it to heart and turn their life around?
Absolutely. I mean, we can see a person's general well, and sometimes it gets into what I put it to colors. Like you're in the green,
Hmm.
pretty light on your shoulders. You're feeling pretty good. Yellow, starting to feel some weight, feel some pressure. Orange, starting to feel a lot of pressure. Red, you're approaching burnout. You're approaching a situation dangerous for your physical and mental health. Uh, so when I see people that are really low on some of those scales, we have a pretty different conversation. You're like, hey, are you in a season of, difficulty? You know, sick parent, a sick kid, a sick wife, or a sick husband. Is there is there something creating this amount of anxiety and stress on you, or is this just your general work life? And then how do we address it? Because this is some of it's not sustainable. Um, and so we've seen people leave roles that were unhealthy for them, go get professional counseling, get coached by us, change roles, and we've seen life improve. I mean, another fun story is a friend of mine did a profile, business leader, and a couple months after we had our we had one coaching call, and I said, try these things with your team. And I just happened to be in his city a couple months after, and we were sitting down at dinner with his whole team. There was small team, like 6 of them. And one of them at some point looks over and goes, "Hey, when did y'all start working together? When did you first do your profile?" And this leader was like, "Oh, it was in, I'll make it a month. Oh, it was in October." And she was like, "Oh, that's what changed." You know, okay. All right, well, there's some feedback, right? I noticed the difference in you after that conversation. And
Yeah.
I looked across the table at him and I said, "Don't take this as a bad thing. This is a good thing. This is you heard some feedback, you made an adjustment, and your team appreciated
Hmm.
it." And she was saying it in a very positive way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed when someone goes, I was doing leadership one way or I was doing live film. It's not only impacted my position or my team, it impacts families. We say that constraints play themselves out in every role we fill. So it goes home. And we don't often put family and friends on a profile, at least an initial profile.
Hmm.
What do you want to work on next? But I love when we get feedback that says, "Hey, this impacted the way I talk to my wife and my kids."
Yeah.
So it does make this. And we love that.
I imagine with some of these, maybe, if you're looking at someone's profile and you're like, hey, there seems to be something going on here, let's talk about what's going on. You probably have some pretty emotional conversations at times, for people starting to open up and like, oh, here's probably why. Have you ever had somebody tell you something that they've never told anyone else before? Or like, how's that been for you in some of those conversations when they're open, when they see objectively that people are experiencing them a certain way and they're like, I know what's causing this, but they never told anybody. What are those conversations like for you?
Yeah, I mean, we can see if there's been some past trauma or abuse happening. Um, I asked a leader one time, are you okay? Are you in an abusive situation at work or at home?" And the answer is yes.
Mm.
You can see when that happens, we're not counselor, licensed therapist.
Right.
I mean, that puts us in a bit of crisis mode of going, "Hey, you need to take steps outside of Integrus to deal with this and to get some professional help for this specific mental health situation." It doesn't happen on a lot of calls, but there can be teams and leaders. I like to think that people get seen by our
Mm.
process. And
Yeah.
so, if we can do both those things, one of the things we believe about leadership is that people need to do significant things. But as they start to do those things, they can get stuck or get scared. So we talk to a lot of leaders that are saying, "I don't feel like I can move forward, or I'm scared. I don't have the courage to give up what I've got right here, see what's next in front of me." And so if we have a call with somebody and we can give them skills, get them unstuck, or give them courage that moves them forward, and I feel like we did our job well. conversation. You want that
Yeah.
better than you do. But yeah, I mean, tears, hope can be rekindled. Decisions can be made to leave organizations or for organizations to say this isn't a good fit. There's a lot of relational damage with this thing. Don't know whether Jesus can be any relationship. It's an uphill climb for some situations.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to get out of the situation and just go bless you and go do something else and hope everyone succeeds. But this wasn't a good fit. And,
Yeah.
so that's probably what I.
Hey, speaking of hope, what have you learned and observed over the years when it comes to people's ability to learn, grow, and change from getting feedback? I can imagine, some people are like, I can imagine some people may be nervous to take this report and then realize they already think like, yeah, I'm not that great, and I know everyone's going to tell me I'm not that great, and then I'm just going to feel bad about myself. But how have you seen the ability for people to change and adapt and to get healthy?
One of the things I would say to Noel says this. He says, and you say, people overestimate what we can do in a day, but underestimate what we can do, right? That's a lot of our world. We're talking about making small behavioral adjustments over a long period of time. Yeah. Plane taking off from LAX, heading for DC. If it's 1 degree off,
Yeah.
Takeoff, they'll land in New York or some other city. Right? We're looking at the long haul. We want to keep leaders in the game for longer. We want to keep their staffs healthier, moving faster towards their desired outcomes. And that's what we're looking for. We don't want to be a one and done. If I have one conversation with you there, I hope that it puts them on a trajectory a little bit different than they did before. But we love long-term coaching relationships. We love to be engaged with teams for years. That's what we're looking for in long-term engagements. It doesn't always, but I would say that we underestimate what we can do in a day, or overestimate what we can do in a day, underestimate what we can do in a day. And small compounding behaviors over a period of time can create a very different environment for sure.
So I'm curious. This might be hard to answer because everyone's unique, but I also know like the culture in which we live can apply certain pressures on people and maybe produce certain anxieties and tensions and that sort of thing. So we'll do this for women first and then for men. But what are some of the most common areas of unhealth that you see in women today? Is there any like you're not surprised maybe in like North American Western culture that you see on these reports?
Not trying to skirt the question, can I answer a slightly different question because it's
Go for it.
We have the opportunity to speak to a large number of women, and we decided to do a little research project, collected data for the past couple of years of high influential and high credibility female leaders that we've had the pleasure of coaching, put all their data together and make this into. And so here's how I'm going to answer your question. What we've found in these ladies is, number one, they can develop a specific, tangible skill that was making them an expert in their role. So maybe it was HR, maybe it was executive director of a large nonprofit, right? They developed a skill, a specific skill. And the other thing that was unique about it is that maybe we don't see in all female leaders across the board. Yeah, that's a generalization. But these ladies didn't disqualify themselves. They had a skill set, stepped into it. There's obviously trends that we see: more collaboration, more agreeableness. Generally, again, every leader's different, but generally speaking, with female profiles. But and if I could encourage a female leader, grow your skills, like increase your confidence as you step into the workplace, or being a nonprofit, or being a great mom, whatever it looks like for you. Gain skills, keep being a learner, and then don't disqualify yourself from the opportunities that are set before you. That's what I would encourage, and that's some of what we're going to share. You'll see on the Dylan's podcast, because that's a little sneak peek into what we're going to share with the ladies at this.
Yeah, that's helpful. Any thoughts on men?
Yeah, the one thing I would say is we do some hiring work. We help vet candidates for positions. I would say this: there's not a profile that just instantly disqualifies a person, but unless they're just antigen. If I see certain things that just you see where your behaviors would suggest there's arrogance, entitlement, an unwillingness to receive feedback and to go, I think you'll kill cultures, and it's a disqualifying. So don't be that guy. Like, um, uh, receive feedback, say thank you. Don't get defensive. Don't be thinking about how you're going to respond to somebody before they. Like, don't put that. Again, that can go. You can overboard that. There are definitely men who are more deferential and harder on themselves. Again, not going to overgeneralize that, but I would say for anybody, but for guys, I don't want you to kill culture wherever you're going. And if you're trying to build culture, it's hard to do it if you bring some of those corrective behaviors into it.
Yeah.
That's how. Yeah. That's how it is.
And it makes me think. Again, we got first connected. Acts 29 is a church play network that our church is a part of. A couple times a year, I get the opportunity to help assess pastors and wives that are going to be planting churches. And what's funny is, so many, when they come in, they assume at least like the assessment part is going to be like strategy and development and leaders and like, yes. And I'm like, oh, let's talk about the pragmatic side. But I think they're often surprised at like how much we're primarily focused on the relationship with Jesus and their marriage. Right. It's like, this isn't going to work. It's like the secret to these assessments, if you're a future planter and you're listening to this, is humility. It's like, we can take anyone. And like when we do like our interviews and that sort of thing, the men and women that are like, they take it, they receive it, even if it's okay to disagree, versus the ones that give kind of pushback and kind of, it's like, man, like if you want to do well, just be humble and just take it. And just take from people who have wisdom and want to share with you. Yeah, that sticks out to me as you share that. So,
yeah, and a relationship between a husband and a wife is important. Every leadership, but specifically, I love myself. I'm get better at what we did for Acts 29 or anyone else, but yeah, it's important. So
yeah,
I don't have to put wives on all first profiles, but we do claims because I like to know. I like to know what's going on.
Yeah, that's good. Now, given your experiencing analyzing so many people, and again, I know it's probably somewhat difficult because everyone's so unique, but what are some common misconceptions that people often have about themselves? Or do you see any trends of like people think this, but then people experience them this way? Is there any commonalities you catch?
I would say a lot of people have believed that I'm just this way. People will just be like, this is why. And I'm like, well, maybe. But is that really? And it feels lazy to go, you're getting this profile and these behaviors. Maybe it is because it's this way. And this is how I was brought up. This is how I changed. I think it is interesting. I think that the other side of that is that people feel like maybe when they're coaching it, they go, this feels like a lot. I don't know that I could, this feels exhausting. And I'm like, watch what happens when it becomes like the simplest thing that feels really laborious to you right now. You won't be able to do it if you just have eyes to see it. So that would be a couple things. We do hear these people don't know, or the test is broken.
Yeah.
The profile doesn't, it's not so near. If they'll say this, if we put different people on it, it would say something different. I love that because I can have people. So I'm like, oh, well, you get their names and email addresses. Let's see. Sometimes they were right. Sometimes it was just it helped gain perspective and context once we got more describers. But most of the time I get to come back and go, tell the difference,
Yeah.
So those are maybe a couple of things. And I would just say this: our profile is it is coached in a conversation because your context matters. So misconception would be, well, you just want everyone to be a certain way. No, not necessarily. I do want to have a conversation about what is your role, where are you in the order of the organizational chart. Do you have direct reports? All of those are important as we coach. We're not just trying to make a bunch of very, very same people. We limit the context of their role to it, and that doesn't work. The behaviors that make you successful at one role may need to be adjusted.
Mm-hmm.
Fit for Church 22, the behaviors that get you from a plant to 100, they either 114, may not be the same behaviors that get you to 500, where now you've got 4 or 5.
Yeah.
So we need to look at that. So maybe that's it.
Yep. When it comes to people's self-awareness of themselves, I'm assuming most of us feel like we are more self-aware than we actually are. And so I don't know how you could answer this. Generally speaking, I know there's exceptions, on a scale of 1 to 10, so 10 being totally surprised and 1 being like, I 100% could have told you what my scores and things were going to be. How surprised are people generally when they get their Integrus results?
I would say what was the low is they really are not surprised.
Yeah, they 100% knew.
I would say generally it's probably a 3 or 4. Oh yeah, I can see this. Yeah, I understand that what you're saying here. It's a little bit rare for me to see someone who's like puts their self-description on one end of the scale and all the describers. But we do have conversations and we do talk to people about that. There's always something going on. Maybe you were describing who you intend to be as a leader instead of who you truly are. I will say that we love to be judged by our intentions.
Right. Yep.
Have the intention of texting that happy birthday text. Have the intention of giving that information, but we will be judged by our behaviors. And so if there's a lack of awareness, maybe there's a lack of awareness. Maybe you are describing who you intend to be. But that's why we like the 360. I will rate a person's self-score on our profile 20% of my evaluation. I don't discount it entirely. And there's even one scale that I give 50% of my evaluation. For the rest of the profile, though, 80% of my evaluation really comes from the describers because they're telling me how your behaviors are impacting them, especially when there's great consistency with them. Then that tells me something. Now, I will say this. Some leaders know they don't need or aren't something, but adjust their behaviors in a very positive way as they know their team. So someone may be lower order, right? They may be more tolerant of chaos, but they know their team needs structure. They need to close loops. They need to finish projects. So they adjust their behavior. And when I see that, I affirm them. I'm like, hey, look, you're very spontaneous, flexible, but you know your people appreciate this clarity. It lowers their anxiety. You need to adjust your behaviors.
Yeah.
Well, I can see it.
Yeah, you've been doing this for a while, so I'm assuming this happens less and less. But are you ever surprised when you get someone's report and then you probably start thinking or assuming they might be a certain way, and then you meet with them and they're like not all what you thought? Does that still happen to you, or you kind of?
Yeah, it does. And I'm always learning. I love learning about people. And speaking of Enneagram, I'm okay. So when I see something I've never seen before, I don't understand, I start to get that. I'm like, tell me more about this. I had a call with a leader who I didn't understand his data. I was like, this was probably a year ago. And so I got on and I was just like, I can coach you. I'm just like a normal call, but I'm really interested to just learn about you. And it turns out that he had been a military test pilot. And I was like, oh, how? Now I can see, like, his numbers were just all over the place in really interesting ways. And I was like, so you have to be kind of crazy to test aircraft. Okay, I got it. Like, maybe this is what, Maverick would have been in Top Gun. Like, maybe this looks like his profile a little bit. He helped me develop a work picture. And I told him, I said, hey, people are trying to put you in a box of a commercial airline pilot. You get on, you have the same script, you fly the same routes, but you're a test pilot. And it helped me in that conversation coach other people because I learned something I didn't know. I didn't have context for them. So when I see that trend again, not that it's exactly the same, but I enter that conversation. I say, does this resonate with you? Like if I say this, yeah, that's more me. I'm like, okay. Now I have a word picture. I have an idea of what this looks like in the real time.
Yeah. Now, again, Integrus is a behavioral profile, not a personality test. But you're in that world of people kind of evaluating, self-evaluating. What are other like? Do you have like favorite personality tests, or the ones that you think are more helpful than others? Like, what's your opinion on all this stuff out there?
I think they're really helpful if you use them the way I think they're intended. So what I mean by that is like, if you're doing and you're an 8, don't be that guy that's like,
right,
I'm an 8, and someone's gonna cry in this meeting, and right, like people, the area that I think that different things, yes, or Myers-Briggs, there's a number of them that are out there. I'm just saying that maybe more well-known ones. They'll type you and then they'll talk to it. But where I think they run into limitations, if you start to ask, well, this is good to tell me what my internal motivations are, and please, I'm not the personality assessment expert. So if you're like a disc Enneagram person, you'd be like, you're getting this wrong. Correct me. Email me. I'll give you an email at the end, and I'd love to have a conversation. But I find that some people, in their attempt to self-understand or self-help, they'll misuse them in some ways. So they'll say, I'm just going to be more of this. So this is what I am and deal with it.
right?
Should I be more of a D or, disc assessment or less? I don't know exactly what to do with that. I think it's good to know that about yourself and know if you have a diverse personality makeup on your team, and come back to appreciation. But I fear that some people use it and just say, this is who I am. And it gives them a license to be like the worst version of that they can. And I'm like, that's misusing these tools, I think. And so I do think we complement that. And the other thing I've seen is that like our leadership team has multiple Enneagram 3s on it, but all of them behave differently. That 3 works itself out in different behaviors. And so that allows us to just go, I love that you know that. I know that I'm a 5. I know that there are some things that's going to naturally lead me to it. But how I behave matters. Right. And that's where that's good. So.
Brent, I'm laughing, feeling a little bit called out here. Tell me if this is bad or good. I'm an Enneagram 8. And again, with our connection for the X1 assessments, just for those, obviously most of you probably wouldn't know how it works. There's multiple pastors and wives that come in, and then you're on an assessment team, and we're assessing 2 couples at each assessment. Part of that, we do like interviews with them, like 2 hours long, talk to a lot of stuff. And one of my goals at every single one is to make sure the men cry at some point.
Come on.
But I will say, it's not, I don't care what the reason is. It could be happy tears, sad tears, convictional tears.
Right.
And I was just like, I want to see tears at some point. That's a goal. So I don't know if that's good or bad, but
you're sitting over there, you're like, pastors are like, I want to take this. Dylan's never been like, I want to take it. It's always like, are you sure about that? How could that be about? You're very, very intuitive. But I walk away from that table and I'm like, one day I'm going to get a smile out of Dylan. It's going to be, today's the day. I'm like, we got there.
There you go. You got me to smile. I can make people cry. That's
exactly.
my goal.
But that's it. It just there is real validity to the science behind those personality assessments. But I struggle with telling someone they should change their personality. My God, you can't a certain way for a certain skill set. That being said, inside of that, there's you can get effects like this.
Yep.
Well, behaviors that are more productive.
Yeah. Well, as a side note too, we have a connection point. I'm a big college basketball fan. For those that are watching behind me, we got Duke.
Listen, I wasn't
lifelong Duke fan.
Wasn't
yeah, we're recording in real time. Duke lost last night. It's been but hey, listen, I am encouraged. They got a young team. I think they'll be fine, but they've had some late game mismanagement this year. This has not been very fun to watch. So anyway,
one of my closest counterparts in our leadership team, she is the biggest Duke fan. So I'm watching the game last night.
Oh.
He's on the East Coast, and I'm like, it's kind of late. Is she getting a text from me tonight? I said, no, Thanksgiving, we're going to get through this, but it'll come next week.
There you go. Yeah, because you don't want to get a knock on your next Integrus profile, like lack of compassion. You don't want to do that.
Well, she would say, she would say, yeah, this is the nursery.
Yeah. Where is it at? Yeah.
So,
That's funny. Of the things you get to do with Integris, what would you say is your favorite thing about your job for you?
I love, so, I mean, in I'm answering this honestly, I love the team. So that's, I mean, I work with some very, very good, not just that, but living with his friends. So the community that we just with is really special. But from a task standpoint, um, I love finding a leader who is either a hyper successful, like their team's doing great, everything's healthy, but they want to stay healthy, or that leader who's like, help. I love a leader that starts to lay out and has a vision for what we can do or will do with the team, and then start to go, now let's do it. Like, what would it look like? How many days can we do? What would we coach on? That back and forth, because Integris is not just selling success.
Right.
And we are really making custom engagements for each person. When I get to dream with a leader, and they're willing to put forth their discretionary funds for development of their team and trust us with it, it's hard to say there's something more fun than letting them catch that vision.
Yeah.
Actually doing the work and then going to what needs to make a difference. That's
Now, obviously, I would personally highly recommend Integris for everybody listening to this. For those who have not yet taken that step, with all the work you've done with people over the years, what is one piece of advice or encouragement you would give for people who want to, just generally speaking, improve their relationships with others? So they might not have all the feedback that they would get from Integris, but we want to be conscious that, like, our ways that we can ensure that we're doing well and doing right by other people.
I would say don't be disgenuine. Like, don't fake it. You have the ability inside you to connect with people. I've said a couple of them. Ask good questions. Ask things that aren't about work. But I would generally put it in, if you increase your intentionality in this area, it will. It might be awkward at first. People might wonder what's wrong. Like, you okay? Are you sick? You know, um, an interesting thing. If you're watching this podcast now, pull out your phone and text to people, right? Just, hey, I'm thankful you're in my life, learned so much from you, or this is what I appreciate about you, or thank you for doing this for me. Text two people and then put your phone down and then see what the response is. If the response is like, love you too, brother, I love being this with you, you're like, okay, I'm probably doing a good job at this. If you get back that's like, okay, like, what's the problem? Where's the bad news? Then get some feedback that you might need to pick up that phone. And I would say this: you can nurture relationships and connect with people, whether they're in your office every day or across the nation. And if you're a more independent leader, prioritize it. Be intentional about it, not just genuine, intentional. If you love coffee and you don't like getting involved in move the coffee pot into your office, move it back to a clean space, walk around. Now, I know the research, it takes us 15 to 30 minutes to re-engage with significant work if you do. Okay, that's number one. So I'm not telling you not to prioritize focused work, but if you're pulling back or disengaging from your people relation, just know that's not normally. And so little bitty things like go along, like learn how your people receive encouragement or affirmation the best. The 5 love languages, that's real stuff. If you think everyone in your office is gifts and you love giving out Starbucks gift cards, it would not work for me. I do not like coffee. I do not like Starbucks. And if you were giving me a Starbucks gift card as a way to say thank you, it would be very nurturing to my wife.
Bro, I'm
the
same way, man. I'm not a coffee guy. Anytime I get those, she gets them.
That's right. So if you feel like as a leader, you get stuck in this routine and doing something you really appreciate and don't know that the person appreciates it, unfortunately something you're doing to be nurturing and count against you, because over time I'm going to be, wow, it's a great leader, but my wow doesn't know me because he keeps giving me a Starbucks gift card.
Mhm.
And he's not learning that I'm just giving this to someone else, you know?
Right.
And so sometimes leaders, we can do things in an attempt to be nurturing, and I think this should give you a fair shake.
Yeah.
Learn about the people, learn something about them, see if maybe a note from you would go way farther, you know, than Starbucks gift card. It's safe knowledge, you
Right.
know? So, yeah.
So put you on the spot here a little bit. If you could do an Integrus profile report on anybody in the world, like who is like one person you'd like, I would love to do an Integrus coaching call and learn about how people perceive them. Who's one person?
Well, so many come to mind that I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to go there on Dylan's
Well,
spot.
and to be fair, it doesn't mean you necessarily like or want to be with, but like it would just be fascinating to you. So you can shoot some names if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to do a profiling and a coaching call with Trump. I'd be
Yeah.
like, man, your constraints are felt. Let's go. So,
Yeah.
but in all seriousness, um, a famous person. We've gotten to profile some sports professionals, so
Cool.
some of their data. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the awesome directions is a big file. I know it's like a Bible study, like that's like a Bible class 101. But man, that would be fascinating. Just to have
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
And then you'd have to, if you could profile Jesus, you would then have to readjust all your,
I wouldn't.
to like, whatever Jesus is, these are the markers of health. You got to move them all.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, so I gotta make sure that they're accurate. I mean,
yeah.
I would have fun. I would have fun with world leaders who really want to make his life better. That would be fascinating to me. I would love to go about him. That's where he wants to grow.
Yeah.
But a specific person, I just think it'd be a fascinating conversation. Don't know how it would go, but
Yeah.
it would tell us some stuff.
Yeah. That's good. Now, Brent, this would be great. As we kind of come to close, I know this is not your decision, but I feel like I want to ask. We mentioned in the beginning that Integrus is for like more faith leaders, that sort of thing. But it's so good. Like, what is the restriction to opening up to like all businesses and just like anyone?
So, let me say this: if you want to have a conversation, you're this.
Yeah.
We'll be in it. So, Dylan, if it's okay, you have my contact information, but I'm posting the show notes, so
Yep.
say it on here at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I won't tell anyone, to be fair, but it is about focus. It is about our mission, why we exist, is to advance the gospel. And so, if that's our purpose statement, our process statement, Dylan, is to do hard things that people care about.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, if a business leader can two of those three or all three of those metrics, we're probably a good fit. But we want to be focused, and it doesn't mean that we're saying no to anybody. It just means that our focus is I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of churches and prophets. I mean, there's a lot of help needed there.
Right.
We start to get into businesses and look at different types of needs. And we don't have a huge team, but
yeah.
So,
Well, I don't know, man. After the White House calls, you might have to expand. So,
I don't know if we it'd be fascinating conversation.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Brent, this has been so great. As we end here, can you just maybe share like how people can learn more about Integrus, whatever you want to share, your contact wise, and we'll put all that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, Integrus.org. Go look us up. My email address is my first name, Integrus, INTEGRUS.org. I would love to hear from you on the whole team. I would get privilege of leading. We'd love to meet you. If you want to learn more or see other resources, we talked a lot about just our 360 profile. There's a lot of resources out there. We have 15 and currently developing So if you just want a conversation, then that's what comes in the phone call. And if you're the you give it organizations trying to receive get their fans in. Said, well, hopefully with that.
Yeah, great. And like I said, we'll put that in the show notes if you missed it. So just go in there and you can reach out to Integrus. Brent, thanks for your time and for what you're doing. You guys are doing a lot of great work.
Thanks, Dylan. Thanks for having me, and thanks for sharing a bit about what you do.